Hey there, listeners. This is your host, Trenz, signing in, and welcome to another episode of Trenz Podcast. For today's episode, I will be doing a book review of the 5th and 6th book of the Chronicles of Narnia, written by author C.S. Lewis. The titles of the books are The Horse and His Boy and The Magician's Nephew. Also follow me on my social media accounts such as Instagram at TrenzYBA, Twitter at Katrina Ybañez, and on YouTube as Katrina Ybañez. Without further ado, let's begin the book review. Before I do my own book review of The Horse and His Boy and the Chronicles of Narnia, publication order number 5, let me read to you what is written at the back of the book. The Horse and His Boy is a stirring and dramatic fantasy story that finds a young boy named Shasta on the run from his homeland with a talking horse named Bree. When the pair discovers a deadly plot by the Calormen people to conquer the land of Narnia, the race is on to warn the inhabitants of the impending danger and to rescue them all from certain death. Alright, now on to my book review of The Horse and His Boy by author C.S. Lewis. Genre fantasy fiction, children's and classics. Number of pages 224. Started reading this book on January 12, 2022 and finished reading this book on January 14, 2022, and I read it as an ebook. This is also the 5th book I read of this series, but I just wanted to say if you wanted to do the whole Chronicles of Narnia series in a chronological order of the timeline of Narnia itself, this would be the 3rd book to read. I would definitely recommend reading this book. This book is about a boy named Shasta who finds out that his father is not his father. And together with a Narnian named Bree, they set out for Narnia. At this point in time, it has been a few years since the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and High King Peter, King Edmund, Queen Suzanne, and Queen Lucy are the rulers of Narnia. The 3 out of 4 make an appearance in this story, along with Prince Corin of Archland, who happens to be Shasta's lookalike. They, meaning Shasta and Bree, meet up with another Narnian horse named Huin and a girl named Aravis. Together, they discover a plot against King Loon of Archland and eventually Narnia itself. They race against time and an army and possibly many lions, or is it just one lion? Apparently, they also find out that Shasta is actually Prince Cor of Archland, the twin of Prince Corin, and is the heir to the throne. All you need to do to find out how it all happens, my dear listeners, is to read the book. Yes, read the book to find out, my dear listeners. Read the book to find out. And now, what is written at the back of the 2nd book that I will review for today's episode, the Chronicles of Narnia publication order number 6, The Magician's Nephew. The secret passage to the house next door leads to a fascinating adventure. Narnia, where the woods are thick and cold, where talking beasts are called to life, a new world where the adventure begins. Diggory and Polly meet and become friends one cold, wet summer in London. Their lives burst into adventure, and Diggory's uncle Andrew, who thinks he's a magician, sends them hurtling to somewhere else. They find their way to Narnia, newborn from the lion's song, and encounter the evil sorceress Jadis, before they finally return home. And now, on to my book review of The Magician's Nephew by author C.S. Lewis. Genre, fiction, children's, classics, and fantasy. Number of pages 221. I started reading this book on January 15, 2022 and finished reading this book on February 12, 2022, and I read it as an ebook format. And as I've stated before during the summary that can be written at the back of the book, this is Narnia's beginning, so it would actually mean in the chronological order of Narnia's timeline, this would be the first book you would read. even though this is the 6th book published by the author. I would definitely recommend reading this book. It started with 2 children, Polly and Diggory, who later becomes Professor Kirk in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and Diggory's cruel Uncle Andrew. This Uncle Andrew tricked Polly into touching a yellow stone, which took her to a place called the World Between Worlds. And since Diggory's uncle refuses to go and get her, Diggory follows her with his own yellow ring, all the while having 2 green rings in his pocket. Now how these rings work is that the yellow ring brings you to the World Between Worlds, where each pull takes you to another world, and the green ring brings you to the world that corresponds with each pull. The first world they venture into is the world of Charn, in which Diggory wakes Jadis. Remember Jadis, the White Witch in Narnia, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Polly and Diggory briefly brings her to London before taking her to a few other, and finally to the beginning of a new world, Narnia and Aslan. And to find out how their adventure ends, read the book, my dear listeners. Read the book to find out. Hey there, listeners. That's all for today's episode of Trenz Podcast. You can find Trenz Podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Don't forget to follow or subscribe and leave a comment. If you want to hear more book reviews and other topics, stay tuned for another episode of Trenz Podcast. And keep on listening.